Hello everyone and welcome back to Rebooted MCU. Today we're here with Rebooted MCU Phase 8 Part 2, the final Black Panther project in Rebooted MCU, and it's a big one as we finally have the wedding of T'Challa and Storm, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Phase 8 Part 2 is Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and it takes place in Universe 2035. We open on the morning news segment from the Daily Bugle, hosted by fill-in reporter Karen Page by Deborah Ann Wool, who finishes a segment on a fiery UN meeting that culminated in US President Valentina Allegra de Fontaine revealing explosive details on a new weapon being developed by the United States. Page begins her next report on details given to the Daily Bugle by an anonymous tipster detailing the underground criminal activities from the Magia, as the report is shut off by King T'Challa, aka Black Panther, played by Michael B. Jordan, who laments about how the news will never cover political events accurately. Minutes later, we watch him walking with Okoye, played by Denai Guerrera, Ayo, played by Florence Kasumba, and Myra, played by Ayo Edebiri, who update the king on happenings around Wakanda, as well as the preparations for the wedding. You see, the largest event in the history of Wakanda is about to unfold, as King T'Challa will finally wed his longtime girlfriend and now fiancée Aurora Monroe, aka Storm, played by Zoe Kravitz, the woman who will become the new queen of Wakanda. As Myra runs through the guest list, we watch as Shuri, played by Latita Wright, interrupts the group by grabbing T'Challa and telling him that they have an important meeting with Namor and must go. As the duo make their way towards the throne room, the title card appears. Inside the throne room, we watch as T'Challa and Shuri chat with King Namor of Atlantis, played by Raul Castillo, catching up about the chaos that occurred at the United Nations meeting, as well as their mutual friend Everett Ross, taking up a new gig as Deputy Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. under Director Starr, following his resignation from the FBI. Shuri reveals even more troubling news. The numbers of heart-shaped herbs have dwindled over the past couple months, but nobody can seem to determine the cause of the decrease. Namor tells T'Challa to keep him posted on any updates regarding the drastic actions taken by the United States, before T'Challa asks Namor an important question: if he would be his best man at his wedding on Saturday. Namor looks stunned but graciously accepts, but curses T'Challa for telling him on a Wednesday and not giving him much time to prepare. As T'Challa escorts Namor out of the throne room, we watch as the soon-to-be Queen of Wakanda, Storm, runs up and kisses her husband, telling him that Ayo has informed her that the border security has been loosened in preparation for the wedding guests' arrival. Storm notices that something is bothering T'Challa, who plays it off by saying that he is merely nervous for the wedding, and tells her that the duo should grab something to eat. As they walk away to find some food, we watch as Shuri recalculates the number of heart-shaped herbs on record, trying to figure out the discrepancy. We cut to the entrance of Wakanda as we see a small opening that allows a ship carrying Deputy Director Everett Ross, played by Martin Freeman, to enter Wakanda. As the ship flies towards the main city, we watch as the brush and trees begin to shift around as a man enters a small hole in the ground. Inside, we are greeted by the face of Senji, played by Cynthia Erivo, who tells the revolutionary Tetu, played by Tosin Morofalua, that he should really watch how liberally he uses his forest manipulation magic. Tetu retorts that while she might have helped him initially, their teacher, the legendary witch Calypso, is the only one who can boss him around when it comes to the use of his magic. Senji laughs, saying that Calypso also taught her to make herbs that gave her an ageless appearance, with the duo laughing as we see a collection of the heart-shaped herb being stored in the back of the small makeshift hideaway. Tetu sits, asking Senji if she is positive that he will be able to enter Wakanda, with Senji saying that their plan worked because of the lack of security thanks to the wedding of their unworthy king, also commenting that he has a striking resemblance to that of his father. As the two sit in silence, we hear the leaves rumble outside as Tetu opens the hole wider as a man descends the stairs. He is revealed to be Eric Stevens, played by John David Washington, who greets the duo, telling them that the day of destiny has finally arrived. Tetu rises and greets Eric, while Senji cackles for their soon-to-be triumph, as the rightful king of Wakanda has returned. Inside the throne room, we watch as T'Challa, Storm, and Shuri meet with Ross to discuss the global response to the revelations made during the UN meeting, with Ross cautiously warning T'Challa that things will get much worse between the countries before they get better. The conversation is cut off as Eric bursts into the throne room along with Senji and Tetu, with Okoye trailing the group and apologizing to T'Challa for allowing intruders to enter his throne room. T'Challa tells Okoye not to worry, saying that he recognizes two of the three who stand before him. Tetu the Revolutionary, a scholar who used to be the keeper of the heart-shaped herb, before he began spreading revolutionary ideals throughout Wakanda, and pushing for absolute nationalism and warmongering around the world. Senji, the witch, was someone who T'Challa notes his father dealt with during his rule, but she was believed to have been dead. But surprisingly, she doesn't look like she has aged a day in her life. As he turns to Eric interjects and challenges T'Challa for the title of King of Wakanda. T'Challa scoffs at the notion, saying that only someone who is of Wakanda is allowed to challenge the king for the crown. Not only has T'Challa never seen Eric before, but Eric does not don anything resembling Wakandan clothing or accessories. Eric then reveals the truth, that he is T'Challa's cousin, the son of the older brother of T'Chaka, Sion, and tells the shocked crowd that if they do not believe him, they can check their history books and learn the story of Sion, the son of King Azuri who was banished from Wakanda for his ideals. And while Okoye runs to find records related to Sion, Eric reveals the story of his father and how he found himself in Wakanda. The year is 1973, and the world is much more tumultuous than it is currently. The United States has found itself in the midst of the Vietnam War, nuclear weapons have now become essential to ensure safety of one's nations, and rumors of a secluded kingdom that holds a powerful substance that could change the tides of war have spread far and wide. In Wakanda, we watch as Changramain the Wise, played by Mufasa Shakir, teaches a philosophy lesson to the two children of the king. The eldest son, Sion, played by R.J. Kyler, and the younger son, T'Chaka, played by Michael Ward. Changramir discusses Wakanda's foreign policy with the boys and notices a sharp contrast between the two's ideals, with T'Chaka standing firmly against Wakanda getting involved with international affairs, while Sion held a strong belief that Wakanda should move in the direction of more outreach and less isolation. As the lesson comes to an end, we cut inside the throne room as we see King Azuri, played by Sterling K. Brown, and Queen Nalani, played by Gabrielle Union, meeting with the Emperor of Atlantis, Thunkor, played by Danny Trejo, to discuss the Vietnam War. Azuri echoes his displeasure at watching the bloodshed, but still believes that allowing people far and wide to discover the existence of vibranium would only lead to the potential of future conflict. Thinking back to the man with the last name Claw, who he was forced to kill during World War II, the first man to ever find Wakanda. Thunkor reminds Azuri of their secret mission to aid the Allied powers during the final days of World War II, but says that he respects the king's decision to remain neutral in the conflict for now. As Thunkor leaves, Nalani commends Azuri for his leadership, saying that while isolationism is difficult, the outside world has proven itself to be too cruel and too vicious, especially when considering what would happen if they allowed outsiders to get their hands on vibranium, which would only lead to greater conflict in the future. We cut to see T'Chaka and Sion walking home from their lesson, with T'Chaka asking Sion if he wants to go grab food with him and his friend, Ramonda. Sion declines, saying that he needs to go do something at the outskirts of town, and runs off, leading T'Chaka to wonder what his brother is up to. A montage plays that shows Sion continuing to visit the outskirts of town every day after class, while he and T'Chaka continue to learn from Changramir. Outside of Wakanda, the year 1974 has been a turning point in the Vietnam War, as the Viet Cong have made surprising advances in their wartime efforts, putting the US on its heels. We cut to see Azuri sitting on his throne, reading a report about the increased power of the Viet Cong, as Changramir bursts into his chamber, his face pale, revealing that a former pupil of his let information slip, related to secret actions taken by Sion. He watches T'Chaka and Sion enter the throne room as we see Changramir, Azuri, and a weeping Nalani looking at the boys, as Azuri demands that Sion divulge everything that he has done with the witch Senji. It is revealed that Sion would visit the outskirts of town to visit with Senji, a former scholastic prodigy who was banished to the outskirts of town after she attempted to mount opposition forces against Azuri for not allowing Wakanda to show off their advanced weaponry and firepower during World War II. Senji was able to relate with Sion and encouraged him to follow his instincts and become a nationalistic king, one that would be able to show the world the true power of Wakanda. This resulted in Sion doing the unthinkable, secretly smuggling funds to the Viet Cong in order to help bring down the United States, the nation most feared by Sion and Senji. Azuri asks if Sion secretly went behind his back to aid a foreign nation in their war efforts, something that Sion confirms. T'Chaka stands stunned while Nalani weeps as Azuri scolds Sion for his reckless actions that could potentially open Wakanda up to being discovered and leading to conflict with nations who sought to steal their resources. A tear falls from Azuri's face as he tells Sion that he truly thought that he would be the next king of Wakanda, but because of his treasonous actions, the only punishment allowed is banishment from Wakanda. Sion would be banished from Wakanda, opening up the door for T'Chaka to eventually become the new king, who eventually eased Wakanda's isolationist policies and even shared vibranium with 4 unlikely heroes known as the Fantastic Four. Following Sion's banishment, a national witch hunt would be called to find and capture Senji, but she would never be discovered. Sion would be dropped off in Washington, D.C. With no money in his pockets, he would grow up working odd jobs, but eventually meeting and marrying a girl named Alicia Stevens, played by Chioma Annette Umala. They would have a son named Eric. Unfortunately for the Stevens family, Sion would find himself falling into the wrong crowd, becoming an underground arms dealer, and one night would be killed by a man who believed the weapons being exchanged did not meet the specifications of his demands. Eric would grow up poor, always resenting his father once he discovered the cause of his death, and would ultimately enlist in the United States military in order to pay for his education, becoming one of the best snipers and hand-to-hand combatants in the entire military. This would cause Eric to enter the Wakandan-US war on the front lines, during which he would encounter Tetu and Senji, with Senji saying that he looked exactly like the man she once called a friend, Sion. This resulted in Eric finding out about what happened to his father and becoming incredibly frustrated. His birthright was to be king, and that was taken away from his father for pushing for policies that the current Wakandan king has adopted. This resulted in Eric scheming with Tetu and Senji to formulate a plan to retake the throne when the time was right during the royal wedding, when security measures were relaxed. As the story finishes, Okoye returns and reveals that Sion was in fact a member of the royal family, and despite the fact that T'Chaka never spoke of his brother, Eric has the right to challenge T'Challa since he has Wakandan blood flowing through his veins, meaning that a fight for the crown of Wakanda is imminent. The battle for the title of King of Wakanda happens hours later on the same waterfall cove from the original Black Panther. T'Challa has the powers of the heart-shaped herb drained. Unbeknownst to everyone, however, Tetu and Senji administered a heart-shaped herb to Eric prior to appearing at the royal palace, giving him the powers of the Black Panther. Because of this, Eric is easily able to defeat T'Challa, throwing him off the waterfall and seemingly killing him. Storm and Shuri flee the city, feeling both fear and remorse for T'Challa, while both Okoye and Myra resign from the Dora Milaje, leaving Ayo as the new head, who chose to seek a promotion rather than follow her friends. Eric brings sweeping changes to Wakanda immediately, canceling the royal wedding while appointing both Tetu and Senji as his policy advisors. On his first day as king, Eric began pushing his extreme nationalistic views on his people, calling for them to take up arms and show the world the true power of the Wakandan people that has been hidden for years. Arms production increased drastically, all vibranium weapons, in preparation to show the world which nation will fill the power vacuum left by the disastrous United Nations meeting that was held days prior. An event that was summed up for Eric by Ross, who decided to push for maintaining diplomacy despite his friend being killed. Ross recalls the United Nations meeting was called by Canadian Prime Minister Scott Gunderberg, played by Bruce Greenwood, and was attended by every member state and nation who make up the United Nations. Wakanda, under the leadership of King T'Challa. The United States, under the leadership of President Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Russia, represented by Prime Minister Alexei Vazin, played by Yura Borisov. Great Britain, under the leadership of Anthony Grant, played by Bill Nighy. China, represented by Prime Minister Deng Xiaoping, played by Kihei Kwan. Japan, under the leadership of Prime Minister George Tanaka, played by Tse Ma. India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Nikita Gaiha, played by Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Germany, represented by Chancellor Emil Beckert, played by Udo Kier. And Italy, represented by Prime Minister Octavia Vetvier, played by Emanuela Postacini. Gunderberg called the meeting to discuss the attack on Canada the previous year, announcing the formation of Canada's own governmental-sanctioned team of superheroes, which will be formed by the newly formed Department H under the leadership of Heather McNeil. President Val scoffed at this notion, saying that governments having superheroes at their own beck and call would result in the destabilization of the world as we know it. Prime Minister Grant would push back against this, saying that the United States once had Captain America fighting for them during World War II, and also saying that Great Britain might look to follow in Canada's example. This is when Val would shock the leaders, revealing that under the supervision of the United States top scientists, the US has created the ultimate super soldier serum that will create a being much stronger than that of Captain America. A serum she called the Golden Serum, capable of granting the user the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. This caused much discomfort among the group, with Prime Minister Xiaoping threatening to withhold radon exports to the United States if Val refused to share the serum with other nations, saying that every nation having access to a power like that would serve as a useful deterrent to future conflict. This created an argument among the members of the UN, while Prime Minister Vazhin contacted his homeland to report the news to Dr. Kotov. Wakanda, Japan, India, Germany, and Italy all sought to remain neutral in the meeting. However, the news of the meeting has placed the world on edge. While the United States has a serum capable of granting a person otherworldly strength, it comes at the cost of their moniker as the global leader. Eric scoffs at this story, telling Ross that the next course of action is clear. Wakanda will need to enter the arms race against the United States to get the serum, and learn its secret before any other nation can. Ross urges Eric not to get involved as it will only lead to greater conflict, but Eric refuses, instructing Io to ensure weapons manufacturing is increased because Wakanda is about to cement themselves as the new great world power. A few hours later, we cut to the riverbank where T'Challa used to meet with Namor during Black Panther, as we see Storm, Shuri, Okoye, and Myra have taken up camp and are also nursing back an injured T'Challa, who's clinging on to life after he was rescued by Namor after falling from the waterfall. Storm cries as she notes that T'Challa is on the brink of death, while Shuri crushes wild herbs to create medicine. Myra theorizes about how T'Challa could have lost to Eric, while Okoye is struck thinking about something she noticed when T'Challa was fighting. The punches thrown by Eric cause strain on T'Challa's body that are impossible for a normal human being to levy, even someone with as much combat experience as Eric. The only way such power could be obtained would be with an artificial upgrade. This is when Shuri puts two and two together. Eric's relation with Tetu, the man who formerly oversaw the growth of the heart-shaped herb, is no coincidence. And neither is the disappearance of the heart-shaped herbs, concluding that during the battle for the crown, Eric had the powers of the Black Panther, which allowed him to easily defeat T'Challa. Storm says that if that's the case, the only thing that can be done is for T'Challa to regain the power of the heart-shaped herb and challenge Eric for the throne, which also causes Shuri to leap up in excitement, saying that if they managed to steal a harp-shaped herb for T'Challa, he would regain all of his strength and be healed from his injuries. This leads to Storm, Shuri, and Okoye heading to the Garden of the Harp-Shaped Herb to help heal T'Challa and save Wakanda, while Myra remains with T'Challa. We watch as Storm, Shuri, and Okoye manage to sneak towards the entrance of the garden, when suddenly we watch as a giant weed sprouts from the ground and captures the trio. Tetu confronts the group, asking them if their intent was to steal the harp-shaped herb, and if that meant T'Challa managed to survive his fall. The group says nothing, but Tetu begins tightening the weed's grip on the group, which causes them to begin to suffocate. As Shuri is about to lose consciousness, we watch as a streak flashes across the screen as the trio fall from the weeds, as we see Namor floating in front of Tetu, telling the three to save T'Challa as he will deal with this man. Tetu laughs, speaking into his Kimoyo beats to report that T'Challa is confirmed to have survived his battle with Eric, and his supporters are attempting to gain entry to the Garden of the Heart-Shaped Herb. The trio storm into the garden and pluck one of the herbs as we watch the entire garden suddenly become engulfed in fire, as we see the Dora Milaje led by Io hold torches that have completely destroyed the remaining heart-shaped herbs. Okoye yells at Io, calling her a traitor, while Io says that she is the true traitor, choosing to place her friendship with T'Challa over her loyalty to her people. Shuri turns to Storm, telling her to rush back to the riverbank with the last heart-shaped herb and wait for her there, as she and Okoye will take care of Io and the Dora Milaje. As the fighting begins, we watch as Storm manages to make it outside of the garden before quickly noticing that half of Wakanda has been completely destroyed. We watch as Namor flies through Wakanda, with giant roots controlled by Tetu shooting at him from the ground and crushing buildings in its path as civilians run in terror. Tetu comments that he always thought that he would unleash his power along with an army in an attempt to overthrow T'Challa, not to stop his allies. We also see Shuri and Okoye completely wipe out the Dora Milaje, except for Io, who engages in one-on-one combat with Okoye while Shuri rushes to the aid of Storm. Storm unleashes a blast of electricity at royal guards who have been sent by Eric to find and kill T'Challa. She finally manages to reach the riverbed with Shuri close behind, but as Shuri begins crushing up the heart-shaped herb to perform the ritual on T'Challa, we watch as Myra is hit with a powerful blast of green energy, which was thrown by Senji as she rushes towards T'Challa. Storm shouts for Shuri to quickly complete the ritual as she will deal with the witch. We then cut to see Namor running out of stamina as Tetu continues to wreak havoc on Wakanda in an attempt to defeat Namor, while Okoye faces off against Dio and Storm faces off against Zenzi. And while Shuri finishes preparing the heart-shaped herb, we watch as Senji speaks into her Kimoyo beads and informs Eric that T'Challa is at the riverbank, as we see a figure donning a golden Black Panther outfit heading towards his location. We watch as Myra encourages Shuri to quickly administer the herb, and as she does, we watch as Myra is thrown into the river as Shuri quickly jumps up into combat. In the ancestral plane, we see T'Challa come face to face with the Panther goddess Bast, played by Anika Nani Rose, who he questions about Wakanda's past and its future. Bast tells T'Challa that she has already spoken to his cousin, and the two share drastically different visions for Wakanda, which is a similar issue that his grandfather saw in his two children growing up. T'Challa begs Bast to give him advice about what to do, as Bast tells T'Challa that a nation is not merely a geographic location, but it is also an idea that persists despite disagreement, argument, debate, and even war. Bast tells T'Challa to search within his heart and mind, as the only way to move Wakanda forward is to figure out what Wakanda is. As T'Challa sits up, he sees Eric donning a golden Black Panther suit holding Shuri by the neck. T'Challa quickly hits his Kimoyo beads and suits up, striking Eric in the stomach, which causes him to drop Shuri. Eric asks his cousin what he thinks of his new threads, which are custom made by Shuri's former lab assistant. T'Challa tells his cousin to quit the pointless banter, as the fight about to happen between them is for more than just the crown, but the very foundation of Wakanda. Eric laughs, saying that he already knows what Wakanda will be, a nation that will become known as a new global powerhouse, whose vibranium weapons will cause even countries like China and the United States to recognize Wakanda's true glory. T'Challa leaps at Eric, screaming that he doesn't understand a single thing about Wakanda. While T'Challa and Eric engage in battle, we watch as Okoye finally defeats Aya, while Namor struggles against Tetu, who mocks him by saying that it appears Namor is only a capable fighter under the water. Namor looks around the city, seeing the carnage and wreckage, with only a few buildings left standing. Namor grits his teeth and stands, cursing Tetu for destroying his own land, the very place where he grew up and where he lives. Tetu tells Namor that leaders fail when they allow sentimentality to enter their heart, prompting Namor to lunge at Tetu, landing a fully powered punch that breaks Tetu's jaw and knocks him out. Storm easily avoids all of Zenzi's attacks as she screams that she heard Storm was some sort of powerhouse, taunting her to show the full extent of her abilities. Storm laughs, saying that she has two close friends who are capable of firing off energy blasts 10 times more powerful than hers. As her eyes begin to glow bright red, with storm clouds filling the area, she unleashes a devastating lightning strike that wipes out Zenzi on impact. We watch as T'Challa and Eric fight each other, with their battle leading into the destroyed remains of Wakanda, with the two building up kinetic energy in their suits. Eventually, the duo launch themselves at one another, resulting in a massive explosion of energy that overcomes the city and destroys what little remains of Wakanda. The victor of the fight is unclear until, in the midst of the lingering smoke, we watch as T'Challa stands tall in the middle of his destroyed home. Storm runs and kisses T'Challa as the citizens surround their king, while Eric lies defeated. Storm weeps, wondering what will happen now that Wakanda is destroyed, but T'Challa smiles as he looks around to see citizens helping the injured, beginning to clean up debris from the street, and mothers begin comforting crying children. T'Challa kisses Storm on the forehead and speaks to the people of Wakanda, telling them that despite the devastation that has befallen their nation, Wakanda stands strong. Because Wakanda was never about the advanced technology or the military might they possess, but it is about the love that neighbors have for one another when tragedy strikes. That is where the power of Wakanda truly comes from. T'Challa promises to rebuild the city as he, along with all the citizens, join in a nationwide call to action, crossing their arms and cheering, "Wakanda Forever." The project ends 6 months after the battle, as we see T'Challa dressed in a tuxedo meeting with Eric, who sits in a Wakandan prison. Eric tells T'Challa that his actions were all an act of retribution, filled with years of pent-up frustration and anger towards his father and Wakanda. But despite his actions, he hopes T'Challa heeds the ideals his father held dear. T'Challa tells Eric that some of his extreme views are things that he will never be able to get behind. But there are valid points of criticism and change levied against his leadership, vowing to make change that would make both T'Chaka and Sion proud. We then cut to see a partially rebuilt Wakanda, packed to the brim with guests who have arrived to celebrate the wedding day of King T'Challa and Ororo Munroe. Some of the special guests include Walter Newell, aka Stingray, played by Grant Gustin, the man who befriended both Namor and T'Challa after he defeated Tiger Shark, Bucky Barnes, aka Captain America, played by Sebastian Stan, Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, United States Secretary of State Valerie Cooper, played by Alexandra Daddario, Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, played by Joseph Quinn, Hank McCoy, aka Beast, played by John Boyega, Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, played by Asher Angel, and Warren Worthington III, aka Angel, played by Brandon Perea. Aurora is joined by her maid of honor, Jean Grey, played by Abigail Cohen, and is escorted down the aisle by Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, played by Giancarlo Esposito. The wedding is officiated by Shuri, with the final shot of the project being the final kiss of the new royal family of Wakanda, King T'Challa and Queen Munroe. In the first post-credits scene, we cut to a few months after the wedding as Shuri travels to New York City to visit the home base of the Young Avengers. We watch as Ross introduces Shuri to a young man that was able to complete his studies at MIT thanks to funds he received from a scholarship by the Wakandan Outreach Program. Xavier King, played by Jacob Gibson, and his friend Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, played by Dominique Thorne. King shows Shuri the Ironheart armor, which impresses Shuri, who suggests that she might have some materials at her disposal that King could use to greatly upgrade the current iteration of the Ironheart armor, inviting both King and Riri to her lab to work on the armor as a team. And in the second post-credit scene, we watch as Department H Director Heather McNeil, played by Carrie Ann Moss, flips through documents of superpowered individuals documented to be residing in Canada. Suddenly, the door of her office swings open as a man enters, introducing himself as James Hudson, played by Will Arnett, and notes that he was called about a potential assignment. McNeil welcomes him and thanks him for all of his help as of late, as he was the man who single-handedly brought down the villainous rogue who had caused havoc around Toronto known as Wire. McNeil shows security footage of the encounter, which reveals Hudson fighting in a suit that resembles that of the Canadian flag, which Hudson reveals he invented himself and calls it his battlesuit. McNeil tells Hudson that she will cut to the chase, revealing that Department H is putting together a team of government-sanctioned superheroes, and they believe the Guardian would be a perfect team leader, asking Hudson if he is in. Hudson smiles, asking, "When do I start?" And that is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Yes, the entire world of Rebooted MCU has been thrown into absolute chaos. This golden serum is going to lead to the creation of one of the bigger powerhouses in all of RMCU. I'm sure you can already guess who that is. We have quite a few projects to see what exactly happens with the Golden Serum, so I hope you will all be looking forward to those projects. Next up is Phase 8 Part 3, which is Deadpool 3. We get to go to Mojo World, so stay tuned for that. That will be releasing sometime in April. I'm hoping to have it released maybe not this coming week, but the week after. We will see on that. But regardless, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment down below about your favorite part of the project, and more importantly, I hope you all have a great weekend. I'll see you all next time.